Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this November 9th PTA meeting from the North Springfield Civic Association. We're very excited to welcome all of you here virtually. We also extended an invitation to people in the Annandale Pyramid, parents in the Annandale High School Pyramid. So we should have some other parents that are here, not necessarily from North Springfield, but of course, we're very excited to welcome three of our school board members that are here. We have Ms. McLaughlin from the Braddock District. We have Dr. Ricardy Anderson from the Basin District, and we have Ms. Karen Keys Gamara, who's one of our at-large board members. So very excited to welcome all of you, and we'll definitely have some opportunities for questions and answers for all of our school board members that are here. We've also extended an invitation to Ms. Abrara Omesh, but I'm not sure whether she's going to attend. She said she would try. All right, so before we get started with the main topic, I do just want to get into some of our agenda. So I will drop a link in the chats here. So if you wanted to follow along, you'd be able to see that. So let's see here. All right, so there's a link to the agenda here. So just a couple of things to kind of cover on the president's report here. So we had a virtual family science night that we just offered last week. And so we had about 42 different students or 42 different families that were logged on. And of course, some families had multiple students there. And it was a very interactive but virtual experience where students got to see a little bit of STEM learning. So we were very excited to be able to win that grant. It was a PTA funded grant that Ms. Jenkins had applied for and then ended up receiving it. And so we were very excited to have that. Hopefully all of you were there. And if anybody else has anything to say about that when it comes time for your report, feel free to do so as well. We also want to congratulate Ms. Jen Haywood. She applied for a grant, and at the beginning of October, they received the grant from the ESOL office, which allows a small committee to explore ways to increase family engagement. And findings from the Family Engagement Needs Assessment Committee will be used to create an action plan to implement for the 2022-23 school year. So there'll be more to come from that, and hopefully we can have Ms. Haywood come and maybe to a meeting and talk about that in due time. I want to spend a little bit of time here talking about the National PTA School of Excellence program, and then also the baseline survey. So the National PTA School of Excellence is a program that designates schools that are selected for this for a 2-year designation. And we have we've done an initial application for that, expressed interest. And part of the process for that is we have to do a survey that asks 20 questions that the National PTA basically generated. And it talks about things that are related to family engagement, inclusive communities, action-oriented PTAs, and how we work together with the schools. And so, we were very excited to be able to offer that survey just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of where we are thinking. So far, we received 23 responses, although this spreadsheet that you see reflects 22 of them. And you'll see some of the questions here. I can drop a link in the chats as well about the so where you can take the survey if you want to. It does close on the 11th because we need to get our application in by the 15th. So essentially, it asked these questions. We were asked to rank them based off of unknown, never, sometimes, frequently, and always. And I gave an average score for each of those. So the questions that score the lowest are in red. So you'll see that some of them are geared towards, particularly this one, involving parents and planning for student transitions, such as middle school, high school, post-secondary careers. We thought that this is the area that most would be able, the PTA would be able to really work with the school on some change. So one of the things that we're looking to do for this, assuming that the answers stay the same once the survey closes, is that we would assist with the creation of a couple different transition programs. So it would be one for students who are transitioning into kindergarten, students who are transitioning maybe over to Canterbury Woods for the AAP program, and then also another set for kids who are transitioning over to homes to both prepare the students as well as the parents for what that transition might look like. So that's sort of the leanings where we're at right now. We'll see when the final survey results come in. Next on the list here, we've got an art framing volunteer opportunity. So Amy, you want to talk a little bit about what art framing is and then what needs we might have for that?
Sure. So I'm Amy Mahoney. I'm the treasurer for the North Springfield PTA. Every year, Miss Pomeroy, our art teacher, and Miss Buckreese, who's one of our preschool teachers, get together with some parents to frame kids' artwork. Um, and the artwork is then shown throughout the school. And then towards the end of the year, parents have the opportunity to purchase their kids' framed artwork if they want to. Um, but that needs we need help from parents to make that happen. So next Tuesday at 6 in the art room, Miss Pomeroy, Miss Buckreese, and anybody who wants to volunteer to help out is welcome to come and get some framing done. The the PTA provides supplies, although right now they have plenty from past years, and then any proceeds come to the PTA. So. If you are interested in helping out, just let me know. You can just message me here or, um, yeah, just give me a chat.
Yeah, a lot of times at the end of the year with the big art show, some of the fifth grade paintings, I will ask the students personally if school can keep them if they're not going to purchase them. And if you go into our conference rooms and the different kind of general rooms that everybody uses in the school, the framed artwork is where that came from. So it's about time that we could update and get some new artwork in there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of what's up is from graduate. Well, obviously, you said from fifth grade graduates. So who no longer have siblings at the school and all that. So.
Excellent. All right, next thing on the agenda here for the president's report that I just want to talk about is the mathathon. So for the mathathon, what that program is one of it's a large fundraiser that we're looking to do. In the past, there was a readathon where we encourage people to read, and for every minute reading, people donated a certain number of dollars. In the past couple of years, we've transitioned over to having boosterthon. So there was a third-party company that came in, and we were able to keep most of the proceeds, and that was run directly by the school. So, speaking with Mr. McRae and Ms. Malkowski, I mean, they would like us to sort of kind of take over the fundraiser, at least for this year, take over the fundraiser again. And so, what we're looking to do is a mathathon. There is a great program, a great learning educational program called ST Math, and it makes math educational through gamification. So learning how to by playing games essentially. So what we are proposing to do is a mathathon that uses ST Math, and so students would get pledges for each level that they complete in this mathathon, this ST Math program. So we'll have more details coming on that in the next couple of months, but we are looking to have that somewhat relatively soon. I think we were talking about doing that. What are we talking about for that one, Chad?
January. Yep.
January. Okay.
And to go along that week, we would run that week more of like a Read Across America type week, where every day we'll take a different key standard from our math curriculum, and there'd be some kind of fun activity around geometry, and then one maybe around multiplication, and fun with numbers. We'll have every day we'll have a different theme, and we'll work either with the kids, the teachers, or give everybody plenty of heads up on different ideas that to how to support for each day throughout the week, all generated around math. So it's going to be fun to put together, and I think the kids will have fun with it too.
Yeah, I agree, and we're looking. You'll see the budget figure that we budgeted for when we get to Amy's report. But just essentially for some of the upcoming events, so we're looking at the mathathon in January. February, we're looking to do a spelling bee, which I know Lauren or Karen will talk a little bit about later. We're looking in March to do bingo night, which is one of our signature events that we've unfortunately not been able to do in the last 2 years for obvious reasons. And then we're looking to do a big spring festival in April and May that maybe Chad can talk about when we get to the administration's report. But that's essentially all I've got to report on from the president's report. Are there any questions? Feel free to either just unmute yourself, or you can just drop it in the chats, and then we'll move on to the approval of minutes. So Lauren, if you can queue up the minutes.
Uh-oh, you have to let me share.
Okay, I will do that. All right. Any questions on the president's reports? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So Lauren, it's yours for the approval of minutes, followed by the treasurer's report.
So I think we're going to go back to September and just with a quick amendment for the September minutes that we did meet quorum with 34 attendees. So any objections? That is the only change.
Yeah, so if there are no objections, and the reason that we want to put a quorum there is for our audit purposes when we do our financial review, which is required by the PTA, the National PTA. All right, so if there are no objections, I think we can make that administrative change. So then we can move on to the next one.
So the last one is October. And we will do the slow scroll. We did meet quorum. Went through our president's report. It was a decidedly shorter meeting than the September meeting, so a little easier to get through.
And we do post our minutes on our website as well. And you can always look at our YouTube channel to go back and watch those. So is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented and slowly scroll through?
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right, so motion made by Amy. Is there a second?
Second, this is Artemis Berry.
Thank you, Artemis. And Miss Dr. Anderson. So Artemis's daughter is also in that ballet class, the gymnastics class at the St. James with us. All right. So, is there any discussion? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? All right. In the eyes of the chair, the ayes have it. So the minutes are approved. All right. Amy, treasurer's reports.
Okay.
And again, if we are moving along quickly, it's just again because I really want to try to. Lauren, can you try to can you stop sharing your screen?
Brian, yeah, it's
Sorry, can you see mine?
Not yet.
Okay.
There we go. There we got it. Yeah, we're just trying to
Okay.
move along quickly so we can get through to the school board members because we want to respect their time. They've had an all-day meeting.
Yep. So we are doing well membership wise. And I'm just gonna scroll through similar to how Lauren did. Flocking is going really well, as well as the Krispy Kreme fundraiser went really well. That's falling under restaurant night. So that's been going really well. We need to continue to push Papa John's. Papa John's every Thursday, you get 40% off, and we get 10% back. We have started selling spiritware again, but that's not reflected here. And we will talk later about our grants, which are they're in here somewhere. Anyway, grants and things like that. And we talked about the family science night, and that was $500. Here we go. Fall, yeah, teacher grants for fall. Any questions? I will add that the Krispy Kreme raised $198 total, which was great. Any questions about that?
One quick thing, can you talk a little bit about on the membership side that there is an expense that's going to be involved? It's just not quite reflected yet.
Yeah, it's not quite reflected. It's all right. So we collect $5, $10, or $16 for the memberships, and then from that we have to deduct $4 to pay for the Fairfax County PTA dues and our Virginia PTA dues. So that's not reflected right now in this expenses because those, as of October 31st, that had not been paid yet.
All right. And can you, for the mathathon, can you share about like our goal?
Oh, sorry, say that again.
Can you share about the mathathon goal? Just to point it out that was.
Oh yeah, our mathathon goal is $10,000 net. So we'll have some expenses there for prizes and things like that. But we hope to hope to be able to provide $10,000.
Yeah, and
Various
so just
activities.
by comparative purposes, we were at $20,000 for Boosterthon. So this is a little bit less than that, but nonetheless, it's I think it's in line with where we want to be for sure. And that was a number that was in consultation with Mr. McRae and Ms. Malkowski as well. Okay, is there a motion to approve the treasurer's reports?
We move to approve.
Was that Dan? All right, is there a second?
Second,
And who is the second?
Williams.
Okay, oh, thank you, Christiane. Okay,
Thanks, William.
so it's been a motion and seconded. All those in any discussion first? Okay, hearing no discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? All right, it is approved. All right, we're going to move quickly into the committee reports. So Dan and Jen, you're up for membership, followed by, filling in for Tiffany for fundraising there.
Hi, everybody. This is Dan with membership. We had a great membership drive. We totaled up 117 signups for this year so far. Our goal is 157 signups, so we are only 40 short. Thank you to everybody for pushing it out, for the teachers, for the hard work, for the families, everybody signing up. It's still open, so you guys can still register. However, the membership drive, the competition is over, and we just want to announce the winners real quick. Kindergarten overall won with the most signups compared to the percentage of students. So they will be having a popcorn party to be decided at a later date. Mrs. C in kindergarten won with the highest percentage in her class. And then Miss Anna Johnson won the Amazon gift card raffle, which we raffled off based on a percentage of each student sign up in the class. So if you had 6 signups in your class, you got 6 entries into the raffle. And that is it for the memberships. Thank you guys again.
Yeah, and thank you so much. Again, we were looking at a strategy of family, pushing family memberships, and we've seen a lot of people take advantage of that. And we've seen, multiple parents and grandparents joining. So it's not just one parent, but it's getting both parents engaged and, involved in the PTA. And so we've got a great turnout. We got 20 people that are here as well. All right, let's see. Which for a PTA meeting, 20 is pretty good. All right. You want to talk a little bit about Spiritware, Jen? I did put a link to our member hub in the chats, and there was a question regarding, if we're going to have new designs there, or if we're looking at just the what's currently featured on our site.
Yeah, so the answers are yes. The inventory that's currently available now is just what we've had in the past few years. And then we are working on new designs, and we'll make those available as soon as we can. They can be purchased and viewed on our member hub store, and they can be paid there as well. In terms of in-person events, we're still trying to just navigate within current guidelines. What Ken alluded to, bingo, spelling bee, bingo, the spring festival, and we're also working on a movie night, possibly in December before the holiday.
Yeah, so details on that to come. All right, next on the agenda, we've got enrichment. So I know Karen's not, I don't know if Karen's here, if she's been able to log on yet, but if she's not, Lauren, you mind talking about the spelling bee, please?
Yeah. So we had the chance to go meet with Chad and Leslie this week. We have nailed down a date of February 10th for the final spelling bee, with a rain date, snow date of the 17th. A little bit of what's left to decide is if we do some sort of pre-spelling bee in the classes to just send the top kids from each class or grade to that spelling bee. Depends on how many kids enroll. We are looking to send out newsletters probably in the Thursday folders in the next couple of weeks for a, hey, this is coming, and then actual signups shortly thereafter to hopefully get in front of the holidays so kids have time to prepare, and then we can send the word lists and all of that good stuff. But we will be looking for volunteers for judges, and I'm sure we will need volunteers for something else. So let us know if you are interested.
Perfect. Yeah, and we're very excited about the spelling bee. What happens? I know the answers to this, but what happens to the winner of the North Springfield
Yes,
spelling
the
bee?
winner. So this is through scripts. So that's like the real deal. We're not making it up. I'm not sitting here picking words from the dictionary, but the winner of RB goes to the Fairfax County Bee. The winner of the Fairfax County Bee goes to the National Scripts Spelling Bee, which hopefully will be here at Gaylord in the National Harbor like normal. Scripts covers the week of the spelling bee for the child and a parent for hotel accommodations, and then gives them some money for incidentals, we'll call them. But we are very excited. We decided this year, just given the current state of the world, we will do grades 3 through 5, what we do next time. And I'm sorry, my camera is still doing the weird thing.
Perfect. All right. Anybody else on the executive board have any other updates they want to share before we move into the teacher grants? Oh, no, actually, it's updates from administration next.
All right. Well, Q1 is done. I cannot believe we are into November, and November seems like it's already flying by because we have Veterans Day on Thursday. We have then a week and it's Thanksgiving already. So our teachers, Leslie and I had a chance today to get into our team meetings, which always happen on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the planning that is happening, the depth that our teachers are trying to accommodate for all of our kids individually is amazing. It really is starting to feel like, we're getting back to some normalcy, and we're doing some things. I was on the roof today dropping parachutes that kids had made in one of the STEM classes, and we're doing it again tomorrow and Friday. We'll see, but the weather might be a little goofy. But we're, off the roof dropping parachutes, and they're timing them for which parachute stayed up in the air the longest. And, so things are slowly happening where we're really just, kind of recapturing what makes school so fun and great. And we're really excited about it, and excited to really get going on some of these in-person events, between bingo, spelling bee, math-on, the festival, just getting back to having people in the building and that piece of it. Knock on wood, we've been very fortunate. I think we're at 6.5 or 7 weeks of no positive COVID cases in our building. So, thank you to everyone for being really diligent with their kiddos if they're not feeling good, and keeping them home. Because I think what we are finding is our kiddos that have not been around each other and spreading normal germs to each other are, being hit. Their colds are a little heavier. When they don't feel good, they're a little more drowsy, the headache's a little bigger. So all those things that they normally push through seem to be a little bit more prevalent. And I think it's just, they haven't been around germs in each other. Some of our kindergartners and first graders haven't ever been in our petri dish known as a school. So, we're working through that too. And it certainly isn't COVID, it's just normal germs. Leslie, what am I missing here? She's the brains of the operation.
Oh, I just wanted to add, I always feel like I'm talking about assessment, but those of you who have first graders, they did just recently change the Naglieri window. So we had sent those dates out, and those are getting moved to December because the COGAT got extended a little bit longer. So we are going to be giving the Naglieri the first week of December. So I was going to say we're done with assessment, but not quite yet. we're getting closer. And like Chad said, you know, we've closed up the first quarter. You should be getting progress reports here this week. And there's any data questions you have around assessment. We don't actually have official letters for a lot of them yet. They're being created centrally, and you'll be able to view those via parent view. But please, if you have any questions around that, or you know, you need some help understanding the data, your teachers can answer those questions as well as Chad and I. But overall, we've had a great first quarter, and we're really excited.
Yeah, and you know, we met to Ken sat down with Leslie and I last week, and one of the things we did make a conscious decision to do is we've saved a ton of money and not sending everything home via paper, but we also recognize that it still is not part of our normal everyday culture or thought process or every week to check online for, you know, what's happening. And we know everybody's reading any emails that come from their kids, teachers, but sometimes the general folder and stuff like that is very easily overlooked. And so we kind of talked about that, having that conversation. So we did make a conscious decision that for special events, big events going on in the school, things that are coming up, we are going to start sending home a paper copy just to make sure that our entire community is aware of what's happening as a school and for our school community. As much as we love, it is easier, and you know, we love the being paperless. We feel like, you know, it's time to, we've noticed a difference, and we want to make sure that everybody's aware. So we are going to start that, you know, as things start to pop up. And so you may see some more stuff coming home from, you know, from school to parents here in the near future. Not a lot, but some stuff.
Thank you. We really appreciate that as well, especially promoting some of the things that the PTA is supporting. We did have a question in the chat, and then I have one other thing that I'm hoping you can maybe touch on. So this one was a direct message. Will the iReady test results be sent home? And then you also mentioned a little bit about the Spring Festival. Now, the executive board knows what that is, but I don't think that it's really been announced publicly, but you did reference it. Can you maybe touch on that?
Do you want me to go? I can go first for iReady, then you want to talk Spring Festival? Okay. So the iReady scores they're creating a centralized letter. Unfortunately, that has not been developed yet. They're telling us it will be coming out soon, and it's going to be available via Parent View. You'll be able to log into your Parent View account and see your students' assessment results. In the meantime, we are happy to share any of that information. You can just reach out to the teacher.
And so one of the things that part of our ongoing wellness conversations and you know, conversations with Ken and some of the feedback that we're getting on some of these different surveys from both students, from parents, from teachers, is just this need to feel like a community again. And so Allie Mallon and Jen Maroka are heading up our wellness committee in our school improvement plan this year. And one of the things that are ideas that they are spearheading, and we greatly want to bring the PTA in on, is this idea of a spring fest or spring celebration, spring carnival. That's all about fun, all about getting together as a community. You know, if it turns out to be a fundraiser, great for the PTA, but the whole premise behind it will be just getting all of our families together on the field, having activities, making a day out of it, and just really celebrating North Springfield, the whole community of North Springfield. So it's very early in the planning stages, but we've even earmarked, or we're going to be earmarking, it's not in this first iteration of our ESSER funds, which are federal funds for wellness. But once we get the back end of that, budget and how much are in our wellness funds, we're going to earmark some of that money to help support this, because we just feel like we notice it in the kids, and we notice it in their behavior and their peer interactions. They've missed being in social structures, and they've missed being with each other. And I'm sure as parents, we all have as adults as well. So the thought process is this is well worth any money, bringing, the community together and just celebrate the community, the school, what our kids have been through, and just have fun. And we're going to do it in the springtime, probably end of April, first part of May, once the weather gets nice. And we'll be looking for lots of volunteers. So that's where we're at this point.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you. There was a question that came in here about any thoughts of special event for the fifth graders this year. And I know that's something that you're going to be discussing soon with the fifth grade teachers. So hopefully that answers that person's question. It's it's timely because it will be, the discussion will be taking place very soon.
Tomorrow, actually.
They want to commit to a timeline for you. Okay. Last thing that we have here before we get to the school board is the teacher grants. Just wanted to sort of share, because in the past, the PTA funds teacher grant requests. And there have been times in the past where the membership has voted on the approvals, and then there have been times where the executive board has made the decisions. Executive board has not had an opportunity to fully discuss this, so we have put some notes to these, but I just wanted to go and present these to everybody and then ask for a motion to empower the executive board to be able to make the decisions, the final decisions on this. But a couple of the grants, there's a teaching resource here from Ms. DeVincentes, which it's grayed out because Mr. McRae said that that's something that we'll be able to fund. There's also some book request here that will be able to be funded from the school side. We have some video content software. There's also some robots for STEM purposes. There's another more engaging activities for STEM students. There's also a game that Ms. Metz is looking to introduce. Eco Club, they requested some funds. We have that grayed out because there's another pot of money that's club grants that this can be pulled from, so it doesn't have to come out of the teacher grant budget. Then we also have some water bottles, and we're looking at basically doing like a PTA donation from the water bottles that we have as part of our spiritware and just replenish our spiritware. So this actually should probably be grayed out as well. We have another grant application here that's some desk bands for fidgeting purposes to put on the chairs. And then we also have one thing here for a science day, essentially. So I know it's a quick overview of what some of the grants are, but I committed in our strategic plan to be transparent to the membership here. So that said, since the executive board has not been able to really discuss this in great detail, and we don't have recommendations as far as like final funding, would it be, I would ask for a motion that we have the executive board empowered to be able to make the final decisions on the teacher grants, so that way it doesn't delay it, and we can get the money to the teachers as soon as possible. Is there a motion to approve what I just said, basically?
Motion. Go ahead.
All right, I think that was Scott, and then and who else?
Caitlin.
Okay. All right. And are there any discussions? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. All right. Any abstentions? All right. Perfect. And that is approved. Amy did ask one quick thing. We should probably do a quick approve. Well, I guess since we approved the financial report, we don't need to approve amending the budget to add a mathathon line item, since we did approve that. So I think it's sort of part and parcel of that. So, all right, perfect. So, all right, we've gotten through the business side of things. We're only 6 minutes behind where I wanted to be. So fantastic. But we're very, very excited to welcome three, not one, not two, but three of our school board members. We got Miss Megan McLaughlin from the Braddock District. Of course, North Springfield is in the Braddock District. And if anybody transfers over to, for AAP purposes to Canterbury Woods, she also represents Canterbury Woods. We have Dr. Ricardy Anderson, who's in the Mason District, and she represents not only North Springfield families, but also those who are going on to Holmes and to Annandale High School as well. And we also have Miss Karen Keys Gamara, who's one of our at-large school board members, who represents not only North Springfield, but pretty much all of Fairfax County. So quite a big responsibility for all three of those. And we are very grateful for each of them being here because they had an all-day work session, literally all day from probably 9 o'clock until just about 5 minutes ago, right? It seems like. So that said, I will turn off my microphone, stop talking, and thank you so much, Ms. McLaughlin, Dr. Anderson, and Ms. Keys Gamara for joining us.
So
Very
Ken, you
happy to be here.
yeah, Ken, you turned off your microphone a bit too quickly. I was going to say it's sometimes helpful when you've got 3 elected officials that we coordinate a little bit on how we're going to do this.
Did we just, if it's okay, because I'm in a place that I'm trying to leave, if I may go first, just so I could transition, I would appreciate it.
Sure. All right, Dr. Anderson.
Thank you. I know you sent a few things for us to consider for the agenda, so I'm going to touch upon those items first, and then hopefully be able to stick around for some questions after the other board members have had a chance to speak. One of the things that you said was regarding vaccinations, safety measures in our schools. We are all very excited that the vaccination for students that are 5 to 11 has been approved. Myself, I took my little one on Friday to take advantage of the vaccination site at Tyson's. And so I encourage families to use that site because there's so many appointments for students. It is definitely much better than the pediatricians, which I know are on the list to get them, but even our pediatrician did not have those yet. Oh boy, now my battery's low on my computer. So I'm really going to rush here. The superintendent did speak today to us briefly, nudged by a question that actually Ms. McLaughlin asked regarding any revisions to the quarantine period, which is now 14 days. And we know that some surrounding jurisdictions have shortened that 14 days to 10 or even 7. So this is an announcement that he's going to share with us on Thursday. Vaccinations for student athletes will be beginning the 15th. For staff who is not vaccinated, that begins the 1st for that weekly testing. And of course, students do have the opportunity for optional weekly testing, but the parents obviously will have to consent to that. Very quickly, the calendar, we are in the middle of that discussion right now. And there was a webinar last night, which I hope some of you had the opportunity to participate in. If not, the survey is available and I believe it closes the 10th, which is tomorrow. So if you have not had a chance to provide your feedback on the calendar, please do so as soon as possible. One of the major things that I really wanted to highlight is the TJ High School admissions that began last month and will be closing mid-month in November. This has been a huge change for our students in Mason District. The middle schools that I represent are Cole, Holmes, Glasgow, and part of Luther Jackson. And historically, these schools have all been quite underrepresented, particularly Cole, Holmes, and even Glasgow as an AP center. So with the changes that the board initiated last year, we were able to have representation from every single one of those schools. There was robust action by the middle school principals to make sure that families were aware of the opportunity to apply and to encourage students to do so. And we're hoping for very similar outreach this year so we can have a very similar result, because we've had increased representation with socioeconomically disadvantaged students, Black students, students that are in special education, Latino students, just across the board, there's just been an increase. And so I'm really encouraging families who have eighth grade students who are interested to please take advantage. I know you talked about the superintendent search. That was one of the things you said that was of interest, but I think I'm going to leave that to Ms. McLaughlin, because not only did she serve on the school board's committee that got us to this point, but I also wanted to make sure I left some of the talking points that you wanted to initiate. One of the things that I wanted to highlight as one of my current priorities as the Mason District representative, this was a couple of years ago while I was running, I met with a number of parents from Columbia and North Springfield elementary school who were very concerned about the options that were available for their students when they entered middle school and were in the AP program, that they would have to leave their neighborhoods to access those services. So the middle school AP was a farm topic that was introduced last April and approved by the board for further action. And so I am looking to have staff return that so that we can make some decisions, so the board can make some decisions about expanding provisions for our students. And I think I'm going to stop there for right now. Ken, did you want me to take questions, or did you want to have the other school board members speak? Please let me know.
Yeah, why don't we have the school board members speak, and then if we lose you for the battery, you know, we definitely understand. But Ms. McLaughlin, would you like to go next?
Great. Good evening, everybody. And as Ken mentioned, I'm Megan McLaughlin. It's been a pleasure to represent the North Springfield community in the Braddock District for the last 10 years. And very much appreciate both Dr. Anderson and my colleague Karen Keys-Kamara coming out to join us this evening as well. I know that Ricky covered quite a bit of the topics that Mr. Belbueno had cited that we should maybe cover for you all. And the main thing I want to do is really open it up for questions. But a few highlights about the superintendent search. As Ricky noted, I did serve on the subcommittee for selecting the search firm. And so the board is now going to have some individual conversations with the search firm just to make sure that the full board of 12 can have a voice in how we're going to really ensure exceptional community engagement in that process. And then we will certainly, once we have that collected information, continue to bring our employees and our community into the process so that everyone's going to have a really robust voice in what's the most important thing we do other than the annual budget every year. So this will be my third superintendent search. So I look forward to working with my other colleagues and really helping ensure that that we've got a strong leadership profile that helps then build the applicant pool from there. Once we get closer to that process, we'll certainly want to be sending a lot of information out to our families, but just framing it out for everybody. Typically, we have community engagement through surveys, through focus group meetings, through town halls where employees and families can talk about what they're looking for and the qualities of a superintendent leader, the things that they think are most important for us to have in terms of leadership, where they feel the district is, its strengths, its challenges, and then that all gets built into the application process. And then typically, once we get the applicants, and that is generally around the January, February timeframe, the board starts its interviewing process in the spring. And then ideally we're presenting a finalist to our community by late spring with usually a July 1st start date. But as anyone who's involved in HR knows, your applicants certainly often drive your timeline. So we'll continue to really keep our community engaged on that. And then I do want to say I appreciate that Ricky highlighted just the excitement of being able to offer vaccinations to our 5-year-olds to 11-year-olds. But today in our all-day work session, many of us emphasized how important it is that we're about to come into the flu season. And the symptoms of flu and the symptoms of COVID can often be very similar. And many of us are very concerned that we've got to have some sort of test to stay program in place. We already have a vendor, we already have surveillance testing that's going to be starting. But for anyone not familiar with test to stay, that's a way of saying for children who have been identified as a close contact, they don't have any symptoms and they're not fully vaccinated yet. It's a way for them to be able to stay in school. We test them every day. We make sure that there is no sign or symptoms of COVID, but it does prevent having children from 10 to 14 days losing learning and being out of school. And again, this is for close contacts where they're asymptomatic and there's no evidence necessarily that they have COVID. Often people who get the flu, they will come off of their fever and feel better in anywhere from 3 to 4 days. But if we keep our quarantine in place and we can't demonstrate or we don't give the on-ramps for our children to come back into school, they could be sitting out for up to 14 days. So we've got some more time-sensitive work ahead of us, but really wanted to pass this over now to my dear colleague, Karen Keys-Gamara, to be able to introduce herself. And then again, we're all here to answer questions in any way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. I'm Karen Keys-Gamara, and I'm happy to be here after work being with my colleagues. It seems we've been together all day. But I do want to just emphasize a few things. I've been asked to speak about the role of the at-large member, which I don't consider to be very different from other board members. We have 12 board members on this school board. Every citizen or resident in Fairfax County has 4 representatives. They're magisterial and 3 at-large people that they can reach out to. And in a county of about 1.2 million, I don't think that's too much representation. There's a lot of work that we have to deal with. And, you know, I try to work with my colleagues and bring also the perspective of the entire county, because we certainly know that our magisterial folks are working closely with their residents. But when we need to make a decision, we need to make a decision for the whole county. And so I think at-larges really help in that regard. I did want to say a little bit about the superintendent search. Megan, thank you for your overview of that process. I just want to highlight that all of the board members, as we talked about this process, really emphasized the need for community input and having assistance with making sure that we were able to do that. We really want to make sure we find a good fit for Fairfax County and someone that will bring the professionality that we need going into these next years. We have certainly been grateful to Dr. Braybrand. I also wanted to, I think one of the things I wanted to talk about was priorities. And today we were having our fiscal forecast for the budget. And the board has talked a bit about what those priorities are. And in the coming week, I believe we'll have a resolution going forward. But just to identify some of those, it's certainly access to improved literacy, advanced math, and equitable access to programming. I think we all want to make sure that every student has an opportunity to develop. And we want to make sure that it doesn't matter where you live, that you still have those opportunities. You saw that with the changes to our TJ admissions, and our work is not done. So I will stop there. It's been a long day and I don't want to make it a long night. And I'm here to help in terms of answering questions. So thank you for the invite.
All right, thank you so much for each one of you for your insights there and sharing a little bit about what's going on. Are there any questions from anybody out in the audience there? Feel free to raise your hand or you can type in the chats. If not, I can make some up.
No, I have a question. This is Caitlin. Let me hang up my phone.
Me, the Daniel? Yes.
So for the superintendent search, I'm sorry, is there background noise? Okay. For the superintendent search, I'm originally from Florida, and I think in my hometown, the superintendent was voted on for. So here it's a different process where, and it was like highly contentious. I remember when I was in high school. So here it's a selection process, not a, and you have community input, and it's
Correct.
Yeah.
Make,
Yeah, let me see if I can jump in there, Caitlin.
Mhm.
So school districts around the country can vary in size and scope. So you can have a superintendent where they're superintendent of a kindergarten through 6th grade. They can just be of a middle school, they can just be of a high school. And as you all know, we're the 10th largest in the country with 200 schools and 25 high schools. So we do have a community group that does participate in like the closed private interview process, and it will be stakeholders from parents to teachers to school administrators. So, you know, we do want to have a cross section of people who are interviewing the applicants that are kind of selected as being sort of first round and second round, so that we can get that sort of additional insight. But the vote, there will be ultimately a vote that the board will publicly bring when we present the finalists, and we have to formally say that we are offering contract to that person. But in terms of community voting on individual candidates, sort of systems of our size, no.
okay, thank you for that clarification. And I do understand your timeline also. And then my last question is, and thank you for all of you for coming to the meeting tonight. This is very helpful. You said how do you choose who are the representatives who are a part of the group that decides upon the final candidates that you present?
So in the past, again, this is the third board I've served on, and with every board, you can approach this work slightly differently. So I don't want to get out ahead of my 11 colleagues on how we might ultimately select the stakeholder group that I've talked about, but I can share with you how we did it before, which is that we identified sort of individual roles and stakeholders as like a group, and then the stakeholders would then select the person. So for example, if we identified that the Fairfax County Council of PTAs, that we wanted to have that parent voice represented through that stakeholder group, they, I recall in one of our searches at least, they had people apply and say, I'd like to, I'm a member of the Fairfax County PTAs, I'd like to apply, I'd like to be considered to be that representative. So our focus from the board in the past had been identify the key stakeholders as buckets, but then let those organizations or different groups select that person.
Totally understand. Thank you very much. That's very helpful and clarifying. And then my final question is, how long is the term?
The superintendent's contract?
Yeah.
Yeah. So by Virginia code, typically school boards can offer contracts up to 4 years, and that's the max. Then, as is typical practice, when the superintendent is in his or her or they's third year, approaching their final year into their contract, the board can then determine if they're going to extend the contract for any number of years, but again, for no more than 4 years total. So for example, when we had Karen Garza, our prior superintendent. She served, we gave her a 4-year contract. At the end of her 3rd year, we said, we really love your work. And so we offered her another contract for 4 years. But it's kind of strange in the sense that since you can only offer up to 4, it was technically that at the end of her 3rd year, we tacked on 4 more years. Had she stayed the full time, we would have had her for a total of 7. Jack Dale, who served before her, he had served for us 9 years before he retired. So, but it's usually in 4-year cycles.
And right now, is there an interim superintendent?
So our current superintendent, Scott Brabrand, he was offered a 4-year contract. And then when the board went to renew his contract, we renewed it for 1 additional year. And the superintendent decided after a long career in education that he would like to retire after this year. So we're hoping that as he retires, it'll be June 30th, the new person will be ready to transition in.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Yeah.
Ms. Keys-Gamarra, you talked a little bit about the budget, and of course, I'm familiar with how the budget works with the school system and within the board of supervisors. But for those who maybe are not aware, could you explain a little bit about the budget process?
Well, we're talking about it pretty much all year, and we have quarterly end of year budgets, but we will approve a new budget in May. We have to reconcile it with what the county offers, and hopefully they match is the short answer. But of course, we get our funding from the state, the county, and the federal government.
Okay, and you cannot raise your own taxes. Again, I'm softballing some questions.
No,
here.
we do not. Well, okay, it's been a long day. We do not have taxing authority. Our mandate from the statute is to hire the superintendent, oversee the budget, and deal with accountability issues, essentially. And so we really are dealing with, we hold the superintendent accountable for the things going on inside of the school system, but we do not, the superintendent is supposed to present a budget to us, and we approve that budget.
Okay. And can you talk, I guess, just since we're sort of fresh off of an election, there was a school bond measure that was
not
on
our
there.
election, no.
No, not the school boards, but there was a school bond measure that was on there. Why are school bonds necessary, and how do they end up on the agenda there?
Well, we have a lot of capital improvement matters, and we deal with those through the bond issues. We currently have a 37-year maintenance schedule. We've had a lot of delayed maintenance, and we deal with the way that we are able to take care of the cost for that is through bond issues.
Perfect. All right. Do we have any other questions for our school board members? I do have one for Dr. Anderson, just to bring her into the mix as well. But while I ask that, if there are any other questions, please raise your hand, put them in the chats. But Dr. Anderson, you represent a relatively small portion of the North Springfield Elementary community, but as I mentioned, a lot of people go over to Holmes and then to Annandale High School. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe how the families might benefit from working with you, or how you represent them, both at North Springfield as well as at Holmes?
Sure. Whether or not our parents or our families and students are located at North Springfield, matriculate into Holmes and Annandale High School, which I share actually with Ms. McLaughlin. I believe it's a 60-40 split just about. So I represent 60% of that. The school that I represent the most of is Justice High School with over 99%. But I think my representation is the same. I attempt to attend the PTO meetings, to have them come to my PTO, PTA roundtables, and just to hear the concerns, whether they're shared with me at the grocery store, at the volleyball game, or at a more official forum. So I see that representation to be the same. And very often it's difficult when somebody reaches out to determine, oh, are you a Mason District representative? Are you a Mason District resident versus a Braddock resident? And frankly, for me, when they say, hey, I'm at school X, if it's a school that falls under a Mason District, I just go ahead and proceed and help. I don't try to just determine whether or not they're a Braddock resident who happens to be at a Mason District, shared school. And so that's been my approach to it.
But Ken, I would like to add something to what Ricky said. Just because I represent large portions of other high schools in the Bragg district, the 35% or so of the North Springfield families, the Braddock Elementary families that continue on to the middle schools and the high school Annandale feeder, they don't stop being my families because they move on to middle school and high school. I mean, the way our local government works is where you live in your district is who you can count on as your primary person, along with your 3 at-larges. And so Dr. Anderson and I really enjoy partnering and sharing the Annandale Pyramid. But workload aside, just thinking of Dr. Anderson's staff aide, Christy Coffey, I'm sure she would be happy to very gently guide Braddock families back to me and my staff aide, because we all have about 100,000 individuals in our districts. And so the districts aren't there to create barriers, but they are there to sort of, share the load and for people to just know who's their elected official and for where they live and reside. But we all partner together, and as evidenced tonight with Ms. Keys Gamara being here, and she represents all 200 schools.
That's a very good point. And I did put a link in the chats here if you're not really sure who your representative is, not just with the school board, but also the Board of Supervisors, Congress, and the Virginia General Assembly as well. There's a link that I put in there. You can just enter your address and it'll tell you exactly who represents you, but also where you can go when it's time to vote. And hopefully everybody voted last week. We do have a question here in the chats. What do our school board members need from us to improve our schools, such as like newer families from North Springfield?
If I may just go ahead and jump in and answer, and then after that, I will take my leave. I've got to bring the little one home. It's your partnership, it's your advocacy, it's your engagement, whether it be in PTOs or PTAs, whatever is the construct of your school, please engage. And when there is a question or concern about what you hear that the school board, what decisions the school board has made, or a policy that is in place at your schools, and you have some concerns or questions, please reach out to us directly. I believe the link that Ken placed in the chat also has all of our email addresses. Don't let those questions kind of fester, because there's so much disinformation that can be found online and on social media. It's really best for you to work with us and to partner with us to get the information from the source, and or to compel us to get the information for you from staff. So I definitely appreciate a conversation with issues that are of concern to parents.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. All right. Are there any other questions before we?
I'd like to add to that answer, because we hear from some parents a lot, and sometimes those are not parents that are representative of the whole county. And so I say that to say it's important that we hear voices from all of our schools, from all of our pyramids, because sometimes it can skew what we believe the opinion of the community is, right? And so I just want to encourage everyone to let us know that we need to hear your authentic voice, your authentic concerns, because I do think sometimes it can get just a little imbalanced if we're not hearing from all parents.
And Ken, let me just tag on one last thing to what Karen said, that's because it's very important. One, on a micro level, as many of you are knowing, we've got the calendar survey, the school calendar survey for every employee, every family member on this call. Please tell everyone you know, we really need everyone to weigh in taking the school calendar survey so we can really hear from everyone what are their priorities. Because how we set the calendar has things from teacher work days to working parent concerns to religious holiday observances and things like that. So we need to hear from as much as possible from our community. And that deadline is it closes tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. Secondly, I want to just emphasize when someone said, what can the North Springfield community do? First of all, I've greatly appreciated my partnership with Principal McRae. He's certainly now had me alongside of him for a decade now. But he and his team, they're the front line. They're the first people, along with your teachers, that in that three-legged stool of the student to the families to the school administration, that's the first place you go to have all of your needs and questions answered. But to what Ms. Keys-Gamarra was saying, and also Ricky Anderson, when something goes beyond the school, it's not that anything Principal McRae and his team are saying this is how we're doing things. It's they're hearing things that we're making on a county-wide decision, whether it's quarantine policies, whether it's test to stay. Those are the things that, please, by all means, reach out to your school board member and say, as a school district, I don't understand X, Y, or Z. But so we always sort of say, if it's about your children in your specific school, your principal is your number one go-to person outside of the teacher. But after that, as school board members, we're here to help and direct you to the resources and the staff you may need to get your needs met and questions answered.
Excellent. We had a comment in the chats here. Thank you for the invite for direct conversations from the community with all its authentic voices. As school board members around the country are facing unkind and sometimes actually threatening interactions with the public in these divisive times, just want to say a heartfelt thank you for all of your service. And then there is a second to that as well. So I don't think we need to take a vote on that, but I think it's unanimous consent that we were very appreciative for all that you all do for us. And again, we're very grateful that each one of you were able to join us tonight. Ms. McLaughlin, I'm also very grateful. I'm her appointee on one of the school board, community committees, and it just happens to be Dr. Anderson is our representative this year on that committee. So I just need to get on one with Ms. Keys-Gamarra as well, eventually.
And did I see Caitlin had a question? Caitlin had one last question in the chat.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so so I have been super impressed with Principal McRae and Assistant Principal
Malkowski.
Yes, Miss Malkowski, that's right. So they recommended this yardsticks book. All right, so we're talking about your Tuesday and Thursday meetings at NSES, the connections between the school board and when to reach out, when not to. I was just wondering if there's any other, this book has been amazing for me. It's been very helpful. So I was wondering, are there any additional resources that anybody would recommend on the call in terms of the curriculum development, when you meet, the way that you all function on the three-legged stool that you mentioned, any additional resources if I'm interested in learning a little bit more about not just curriculum development, but the way the three-legged stool works, if that makes sense.
Sure, I'll take a stab at that first, Caitlin. So in terms of like curriculum development and what the teachers in the classroom every single day are delivering the content to students, that's driven by our Commonwealth of Virginia, the standards of learning, the SOLs. So that's a big driver in it. In central office under the superintendent's shop is the chief academic officer and the assistant superintendent of instruction. They then have a number of specialists who work on curriculum content development, pacing guides. And so they then carry that development and information down to our principals and our department chairs and the teachers. And then the collaborative teams are what happens inside the building, where Principal McRae has all of his staff working collaboratively on that delivery of the content and instruction. So I know I'm throwing a lot out at you. Certainly,
No, it's fine.
Happy to also, anytime for any parents on the call tonight, we're always happy to also schedule phone calls with our families. So don't feel that tonight was like your one and done crash course to engage with us at the board. But that's kind of at a very macro level, how things get taught in the classroom to students. And we do hope to hear from our families if children are coming home and experiencing any distress, or if they're saying I'm not being challenged enough. And that's, again, going up that chain of command of talk to the teacher. If the teacher doesn't have solutions, go to the principal. If the principal doesn't have solutions, we've got a region office that oversees the Annandale Pyramid, and that region office is headed by an assistant superintendent. And that's where we at the school board level almost start to intersect with, directly with the region offices and the superintendent himself. So if I didn't cover it, or, Principal McRae, if there's more you wanted to add.
Yeah, I think that is the global top-down view. What makes it tricky sometimes is none of the content areas are really updated at the same time. So curriculum is changing. It changes yearly, but it's not every content area that has tweaks and changes. So, which almost is a good thing, because our teachers, and I say our, meaning across the county, they dive so deep into it sometimes that to truly try, if they were to try to do every content area all at once, every time there was a big change, it would be a monumental task. I will say too, that the systems in which the county has in place, also starting with the school board on down, it is really systematic, and I think it's set up to be very pragmatic based on the needs of what our kids are, what we're seeing, whether it be state level testing and what the data is showing there, or just even community stresses or emphasis. I think this initiative of access for all, right now is huge. This is something we've been implementing I say this now, I hope I don't get myself in trouble, but we've really been diving down this rabbit hole for 4 or 5 years in taking our own data and almost proving it to ourselves that all kids can just excel at whatever their own rate is if they're given the opportunity to higher level thinking strategies and higher level exposures. And we have the data to prove it. And I'm so happy that we are going in that direction, because yes, there are kids that are truly gifted in their thinking. And they will always be pushed, and they will always find a way to push themselves and advocate for themselves. But it's the students that never have the opportunity, that don't even realize how smart they are, how they think about things. And we are finally to a place where, all of our teachers, K-5, are getting certified in AAP now, because they want to be able to deliver that, use those delivery models. It doesn't matter what curriculum you plug in, it's the delivery and thinking tasks and strategies that are used with that curriculum that really make it the difference. And it's the student voice, the representation of the student voice that the AAP delivery models and curriculum really bring to the table, that is really kind of, in my opinion, the separator between the two real curriculums. And we see it every day. I mean, we have in our room that we meet, our CLTs, Ms. McLaughlin represented with that, we have a list of where every grade level is in math content, where every grade level is in language arts, where they are in phonemic awareness, because that's a new emphasis this year. And then on the far right, every AP strategy that their team is currently using or working to use across all the different curriculum levels. And it's almost like a competition now between the teams of who can use which most. And it's we found that if we grow that kind of thinking organically with our teachers, it takes off and they own it. And once we set that seed and set the parameters, Miss Malkowski and I we get out of the way, because they are full steam ahead, and they will go much faster and much more creatively than if we put any of those parameters on them. But it is, the systems are set up to be pragmatic, and they adjust as we go, and the needs of both kids and programs are constantly changing. Every year there's updates to certain things. And, and I do think Fairfax is very lucky when you think about, we are extremely resource rich, but that doesn't always necessarily mean just because you have the resources, you got to have the people that are willing to use them and the people that are willing to adjust. We have that in all of our staffs, I think. And we're very lucky because, as I've broadened my scope of people I've known over the last few years in other school districts, they don't always have that ability to change, and they do get locked in, and they're very program oriented versus allowing a framework that provides programs that teachers have the autonomy and professionalism to use when they need them, but they also have the autonomy to create programs or delivery models where they can pick and choose different strategies from AAP program or ESOL program, because that's what their kids need in that room right then, or that small group of kids need. So that autonomy in how Fairfax approaches it at all levels, top down, I think is by hands down what makes us stand apart. So that's my 2 cents.
And Caitlin, I just want to add, you sound like someone that needs to watch some of our meetings. We do at times talk about some of those changes. They come to us and explain how they're enhancing this, or how we're improving advanced academics, or how we're reaching out in languages, etc. And I mean, if you're looking for details, that's watching the sausage be made in the most respectful way. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you so much. So that's the YouTube channel?
Yeah, I put a link to the YouTube channel there.
Okay.
And I'll also put one other link here in the chats. This is where you can learn a little bit more about not only the school board, but read their bios. You can look at some of their upcoming meetings, and you can register to speak at a meeting. And you can also view up some of their upcoming agendas and see when their upcoming meetings are. So I just put the link there in the chats.
Particularly, Caitlin, our work sessions is when we have an opportunity to delve in a little bit deeper. Today was a work session just dealing with the fiscal forecast and the changes in membership, etc. But you can look at the topics and go from there.
Okay, thank you so much.
And also, Caitlin, if you go to the FCPS website, you can actually just click on school board, and then you can click on anything from school board meetings to school board members, as Ken had put in the chat. So you'll suddenly end up finding all the different ways you can track and follow what we're doing.
Right.
Well, it's hard with COVID too, how like we're not able to really be a part of the school. So I'm also interested from that perspective as a parent to, learn a little bit more about kind of the background behind not only the curriculum, but kind of the implementation, like Mr. McRae was discussing. I mean, we had a bullying issue with my son, and Principal McRae dealt with it swiftly, and I was very, very impressed. And really, honestly, had he just spent like an hour on the phone with me and assuaged my, you remember me, right, Mr. McRae? Yeah, okay. So the way he dealt with it, though, I was just like, it was such a holistic approach, and I was just like, oh, I'm so grateful that my son, he's in kindergarten, he just started, and like, I can't go in the building. I don't know what happens during the day, and that I can rely on this staff to be a part of it. So, so thank you for that. And then the only other feedback I would get, and I'll look into all these resources you mentioned. So thank you for that. I'm an involved parent in case. So the last thing, and I don't want to waste people's time. The last thing I was just wanted to provide as feedback, back to the COVID thing, is the lack of, I feel there is a small amount of a lack of information. So for example, I'm from Florida, back to that. I don't know when they go to recess, when they don't, when do I need to pack an extra jacket or you know, hat or whatever. I just pack a bunch of stuff in his backpack, but then is his backpack too heavy? I don't know. All right, and then the last thing is with the lack of information, because you're talking about other modes of information like paper versus the 20,000 apps that we have to download. So like the report cards, it would be helpful to have a more streamlined way of communicating with parents, so we're not so confused. I think I don't want to speak for other people, but I do know other people that attend, you know, other parents at the school that it's like, what is this app for? What is my password? Where do I, what, you know? So I'd like to see my child's grades when they come out, but I'm like is it talking points? Is it Schoology? Did I miss it? Oh no. Oh, what is it? And so then, so this week I ended up calling, for example, the front office, Ms. Dallas helped me. And then I called the Fairfax County Health and Safety Board or security. And then they put me in touch with somebody. And then I got the weather advisory thing. I didn't know that it takes a National Weather Advisory Service announcement for the school to be delayed, closed, you know, for different attire to be required, for them to not go to recess. So I want to be able to adequately equip my child for the day and to receive that information from the school, ideally in a timely fashion, and to know where to go. So I hope that makes sense. Sorry.
And Caitlin, that's actually a great point. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be, for our School of Excellence application, doing a little bit of a project to help with some transitions. And if I recall, you've got a kindergartner this year. So that's something that we can definitely keep that in mind. I'll probably reach out to you when we get to that point to start developing an action plan so we can assist parents so they don't run into the same roadblocks that you might have. We do have one person that raised their hand in the chats here. So Jen, if you want to either unmute yourself, or if you wanted to go ahead and just type in the chats, either one's fine.
My apologies. I'm sorry. I was at soccer practice and driving, so I'm now on the side of the road. I do have a few questions about the calendar. I took the survey. Thank you so much for asking for our input. But last year, when we were given the opportunity to vote, and we did, the calendar choices that were selected that were most respectful of all the religious holidays was not selected, and a whole new calendar that wasn't even given as an option to the families was chosen. And I wonder what kind of impact our feedback has, since it wasn't really taken into account last year. And as a corollary to that, since I have a middle schooler, the O days, I'm curious as to see if you're asking the middle and high schools about how O days are impacted when you have a block schedule and you have a lot less time to meet. So if your class falls on an O day and you can't have a test or review material because of the blackout on that day, how classes are keeping up or falling behind because of that. Thank you. I'm sorry.
So Megan, do you want me to, I can start, and then if you
Yeah,
want
you start,
Okay.
and I'll round up if there's
Okay.
anything else.
So there was a lot in there. Thank you. And I'm going to try to remember as much as I can, but I want to address one specific comment, which was that there were surveys and the information wasn't taken into account. I wouldn't say that that's as accurate as I think, because there was a lot of information that the board was receiving, not just through the survey, but through other communication that was coming directly to the board from employees, from organizations. that weren't represented in some of the proposals. And I can say for myself, there was a significant concern that we had not gathered information from the numerous groups that are in Fairfax County. And we were hearing from those groups. And that was a big problem for me personally. I will say, I will let Megan speak for herself, but I can say in speaking to other board members, there was some concern, and I did not want to create a problem where we had a proposal that didn't take those important, all of our stakeholder groups in the community are important. And so I didn't want to like choose one group or two groups, but these other groups that we're hearing from and we're getting advocacy from had not been considered in that decision. So I would say that was a real driving force. This year, we're trying to be more inclusive. There was a follow-on motion last year to try to make sure that we took these things into account. And so we've directed the superintendent to try to make sure that, first of all, we had more community input so that those representative groups would have a voice, and that we took into account, for example, the legal considerations, and we took into account making sure that we weren't favoring one group over the other. And so we're trying to improve. I'm not sure that we'll get there this year, but I think that it is a real process. So I think I covered as much as I could remember. Megan, did you can add, and maybe I'll remember some more, because there were a number of points that she made. I want to try to make sure we address it.
I'll try to maybe just add on at a macro level, and then certainly if Jen wants to let us know if we didn't cover it. I mean, the big issue that we're facing is, our board wanted to be more mindful and inclusive for our employees and our families when it came to, cultural and religious observations. But the challenge we're hearing from our teachers and our families is that when suddenly you now have 15 religious observation days, and then the added concerns of when those holidays might end at, start at dusk and end and the following night at dusk, it suddenly translated into up to 30 sort of blocked out days. Well, we only have 180 instruction days. So, you end up seeing a big chunk of the school year with teachers feeling the pressure of, you can't teach anything new. So I think what I would say is we're all human. And as an elected body, we certainly do our very best to ensure a message of inclusion. But we also have to recognize that sometimes when we try something new, there will be unintended effects that we weren't aware of. We decoupled the spring break from the Easter calendar because people said, again, if we're not following religious holidays, then why spring break keep changing? That let's try to have that spring break falls at a consistent time every single year, and ideally in April, not in March where it's cold. There's a lot of merit to that, and I can say this as a practicing Catholic, for having a spring break that stays constant, that it's more closely aligned between the end of third quarter to fourth quarter. The problem is that when the rest of the Washington, D.C. area public schools didn't change when their spring break is, and we have employees that live in those other counties but work in Fairfax County schools, they're now communicating to their principals that they're going to have trouble covering their class. Well, when they're on their spring break with our school system, their children are in school. And then when their children are out on spring break, we're in school. So that's why Karen and I have had a chance to serve on the prior board, as well as this current board that's been in place for just about 2 years. So what we've come to really emphasize is that sometimes you need to go slow to find the best solution and outcome. And the changes that happened to this current school calendar was a bit rushed in the midst of our COVID pandemic. And the reason I was emphasizing the survey responses is we do want everybody to give us as much feedback as possible. And then Karen and I, along with Ricky Anderson and the rest of our colleagues, we and the superintendent have got to do a very intensive, comprehensive community conversation with employees and families about all the logistics. And I'll just end with this because I know it's late. The school year calendar is like a Rubik's Cube, and you make one turn to that Rubik's Cube and you can end up throwing off something that you didn't even mean to throw it off. And then you start turning that Rubik's Cube a couple times and it is going to be really hard to get it back into sync. So I hope that was an okay analogy there, but the best one I could think of, that it's complicated.
I can only solve Rubik's Cubes with the help of an app. So, all right. Any other final questions here before we go over a couple of volunteer opportunities and then look at the upcoming events and then have a motion of unanimous consent to adjourn for the evening? All right.
We'll just say a quick good night then, Ken. Thank you,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Ms. Buckner,
guys
for your time. Thank you so much,
for
Ms.
this
Kizamara.
opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
All right.
be
Thank
well,
you.
everybody.
You're welcome back anytime.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so just last couple of housekeeping items here before we adjourn is, let's see here. Okay, so we've got our next PTA meeting is going to be on December 14th. Ms. Maroka, our school counselor, is going to be talking about social and emotional wellness, maybe talking a little bit about the spring festival. I don't know if Miss Mallon will be there or not as well. Unfortunately, I know it's going to break everybody's hearts. I will not be at that meeting. So Jen Delboy, our president-elect, will be running that meeting for the PTA. We also have a couple of other upcoming volunteer opportunities. Art framing, as we talked about, short-term commitment. We're going to have a movie night possibly in December. So that is another short-term commitment. And Tiffany, our VP of fundraising, will have some ideas of what some of the other events are, or some of the other volunteer opportunities are for that. We'll have some in-person fundraising in the spring. While we are not required by the PTA to update bylaws anymore, Virginia PTA, that is, we do want to update some of our bylaws just to make sure that we're consistent. So that's going to be a little bit of a moderate commitment. We are desperately looking for a restaurant coordinator. So if anybody's interested in that, I wouldn't say it's too difficult to manage a job, but we definitely could use someone to help with contacting all the restaurants, staying on top of things, promoting it, and even maybe working on the design of some flyers possibly. And then late spring we'll need a nominating committee for our elections. And then we have our mathathon, which will be a short-term or moderate commitment, depending on how the scope of things go with that. So that said, if there are no other questions, I will ask for a motion of unanimous consent to adjourn for the evening. Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, so there are no objections. It is so ordered, and we are now adjourned, and I will stop recording. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we're grateful for all of our school board members for joining us as well.